Thank you. Yes. So I feel a bit different to my my other panelist members because I'm not talking about color. So I was actually asked to talk a bit about my experience with Hispanic and Latino communities, but based of it just felt a bit strange to do it all about what I have done since it's just been a very personal experience of me doing outreach. So I'll talk a little bit about it, but I mainly wanted to focus on these 4 points that also came up yesterday in the discussion on why to do outreach and coming back to the importance of representation and visibility. So the first point I think we all agree on, we do outreach to promote curiosity and foster critical thinking. But what I found very interesting was see how useful this is. So we always joke about people that think the earth is flat or that don't believe that NASA went to the moon. How many people actually believe that? I found this study that just tried to get responses on 4 conspiracy or science statements. And I know maybe you can't see well, or I need new glasses, so I made these 2 bigger. How many people agree or are unsure about thinking the earth is flat and that NASA did not land on the moon? You'll see they're separated by generations. So millennials and Gen Z that are in the bottom, almost 50% of them either agree or are unsure on the fact that NASA went to the moon. Close to 30% of them are unsure or believe that the earth is flat. This was done with US people. Millennials are those born between 1981 and 1996, and Generation Z is 1997 onwards. So if you were born before 1981, it's not all lost, even though a lot of you still believe that NASA did not go to the moon. So it's very interesting. And one of the things that this survey says is that they can't really explain why millennials and Gen Z don't, like, they're more prone to believing on flat earth and microchip conspiracies. And one alternative is that they are more frequent users of conspiracy-rich corners of the internet. And I think that's something we need to have a lot in mind. Traditional press, traditional media, where a lot of big institutions are still focusing their outreach endeavors, is not where a lot of the younger generations are getting their information from. That's the internet. On the other side, we really need to convince people of financing our work. This came up yesterday with JWST. This is just the OECD countries and how much they're spending on science. You may not be able to see it, but just there at the bottom, Argentina, Chile, Mexico, Colombia, they still spend less than 1% of their annual income in science. So when we talk also about the differences there are between the Northern Hemisphere countries, the Southern Hemisphere countries, there is an issue there that makes it very important that we're doing outreach focusing on those communities, because those are also the communities that have less access to resources. But these are also the places where people are coming from that we want to actively collaborate with, because we want to have a science that is diverse, that is reaching everyone. And that can't happen if different parts of the world are investing such different amounts of money in this. So that's something to have in mind as well in the back of your head. And another point that I wanted to highlight is that doing outreach will actually allow you to become a better scientist. And this is also being proven in different works and experiences. Here, this is just a small number statistics, but still nice, about 2 projects. One was present your PhD thesis to a 12-year-old. The other one, shadow a scientist. And I know it's a bit hard to see, but these are just the numbers of how many people strongly agreed that the activity increased their interest in conducting research. It helped them become a more effective speaker. It helped them explain their research to non-scientists. They gained a new perspective on research. I find this one particularly nice. Most people strongly agree or agree. So the first 2 bars are strongly agree or agree, and then not sure, disagree, or strongly disagree. And actually, E was if this experience was a valuable addition to their formal graduate training. And another interesting thing is that mostly these programs are focused on early stage career scientists, but I believe it can help researchers at any point in their careers. This is another nice plot from Nature where most people disagree, so this is like negative connotation, disagree that outreach will negatively impact their reputation. And this is important because for a very long time there was this called Carl Sagan effect, that apparently people thought that if they did research, they weren't very serious scientists. And I think this still happens sometimes, that some people think that because you're doing outreach, then that must be because you're not capable enough of doing academic research. And most people nowadays disagree with that, so that's great. But you can see that a lot of researchers are not actually that much on social media or doing a lot of things. So most people apparently never use Twitter or blogs. Well, now it's it. Or Facebook. That may now translate to Instagram or TikTok. Very few frequently address the general public. Very few frequently address mass media. Very few address schools. Very few use social media in general, 20%. So I'm not going to ask for a raise of hands, but just think about where you are. And I do want to highlight that, as I said yesterday, I do believe that outreach should be driven by the institutions rather than individuals, but that does not mean that you should not maybe make yourself accessible when asked by, for example, the comms department at your institution or local news media, especially if you're from a non-English speaking country or from a place that has a lesser representation. And then finally, and the most important part for me, and that relates back to the Latin and Hispanic communities, is the importance of doing outreach to change the stereotype. And this is also particularly true for women in science. So there's this marvelous motto of, if she can see it, she can be it. We need to see more women doing science, especially in physics and math and computer science. It's incredible that astronomy uses all of these tools. However, our sister careers like physics, math, and computer science have so much less female participants than we do. Something interesting is, of course, on screen, if we look at TV shows or movies, it's 7-1 on how many STEM career roles are given to women, contrary to their male counterparts. So that's obviously a problem. And the other problem is, who are these successful women in science? So we know the Nobel Prize is a bit in the wrong on how many women they've actually given the Nobel Prize to. There's only 29 laureates in total for the different disciplines. Out of these, 0, only 1 is from Australia. All the rest are from the Northern Hemisphere. What is that telling girls in the Southern Hemisphere? What is that telling people from Latin communities? That they don't have references, that they have to be a certain type of woman to be successful in science? I think we also have to be very aware of that, of what is the stereotype that we're pushing forward, and especially the superwoman stereotype. If you ask little girls, especially outside of Europe, who's a great woman scientist, they'll probably say Marie Curie. And Marie Curie is great, but she won 2 Nobel Prizes. And if that's the standard that we are aiming to obtain, it's a bit intense, and it just grows a lot imposter syndrome in a lot of situations. Now, luckily, nowadays we have social media, and we can use social media as an effective tool to counteract some of these things. This is mostly I'm just going to skip that because of time. So this is mostly what I do in my social media. Just wanted to show this so people don't think that we're just dancing in social media. So this is what a video looks like on astronomy on social media. So no, there's no volume. Oh, that's the timer. Yeah. So, it's just me talking with a background, in this case, explaining what adaptive optics are. It's in Spanish. And a lot of people like this. So my videos have over 80 million visualizations just on TikTok. This is something that people want to learn. I'm not obviously the only person doing this. There's a lot of people, you might recognize Neil deGrasse Tyson there. There's a lot of people using TikTok, using Instagram to do videos. And it's not just people. It is also, of course, institutions. So we also have a very nice institutional use of social media. They have a large following. I think this is something that we should be constantly pushing. But in my last minute that I'm going overboard, I also want to highlight what's the message that we give. Because when it's personal use of social media, each person is just responsible for what they're saying. Each person is just showing their reality. They're showing what they think. With institutions, I think we usually have a larger reach, but it's also a bit complicated. So here I'm just highlighting JWST, right? And we have the ESA JWST space account, and we have the NASA JWST Instagram account. And I thought it was very interesting how ESA says that this is an international partnership of NASA, ESA, and CSA, and NASA says it's NASA's James Webb Space Telescope. So I'm not pointing any fingers, but I think we should maybe, I know it's not up to anyone in this room, but I think especially if you're being part of interviews and participating on sending the message around, let's focus on the international collaboration a bit more. And not just Webb, everything in astronomy really needs a multidisciplinary effort. So I think this is what I really want to communicate. We need to be communicating. When we just show this amazing picture, let's not just say this is lovely, this is beautiful, this teaches us about the universe. Let's also push forward the message that it's a multidisciplinary effort. Let's value the task of science communication. It's a job. Scientists should be trained on this. Professionals must assist. Hopefully, institutions can help out. You do not need to be a Nobel laureate to do outreach. You can just be a grad student. You can be an undergrad student. There's a lot of journalists that are doing outreach. We can have different opinions on that, but when possible, hopefully be accessible. The message matters. The message matters. So the way it's delivered, the content, if you're a scientist, be an active part of this process. And very finally, I really think that we need to think more. We've seen a bit, this has been touched briefly, but astronomical discovery is not neutral to what's going on in the world. So in a world where a lot of places are, being more strict on migration policies, on how people are moving around, we really need to be stressing that we need people to move around. We need to be diverse. We need to be welcoming to different cultures and different ideas. And I think this is something we should all be pushing. So just join us in the Outreach Club.